This is the inaugural episode of the DNA podcast. We've got a very special guest, Mihal from American Fortress. We've got Brock Pierce with us here today. How are you doing, guys?
Doing fantastic. This is the first one, and you invited
It is the
me?
first, yeah. That's
Well,
right.
for happy holidays. We made a plan to begin this year, so we're just making sure we check the box before the year end. And so, and it's great to be here. How long ago did I invest with you?
Late 21.
Yeah, so I've got 4 years with you. So
Yes. Yeah.
it's been great. It's basically the a governmental term. I'm talking to you from the Pierce School in Washington D.C. And so, basically, a governmental term, and turn. Here we are.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, super happy to be here, super happy to share the tech. It's great that I'm the first guy. So let's jump into it. What do you guys want to talk about? I know we have a little bit of an agenda, but we're also kind of flexible.
Like any meeting when we're talking about something. Who are you? Like, what are you building? You
Okay.
know, so it's back to like what, who, like what, why, and who. Let's get through these three W's. So like let's actually start with forget who you are. Let's talk about what you're doing. What's the purpose? What are you building? Why does it matter? Right. And then why you, which is the who.
Okay. So what we're building is a universal privacy solution for all of crypto that makes every chain and token private, just like Zcash, but you don't have to use Zcash. And it does this without mixing because mixing is not necessary. Now you can optionally mix if you want, but because we're pro freedom here at American Fortress. But we're solving this huge problem of privacy in the space. And the other problem we're solving is the problem of ease of use, so that right now, to use any crypto, you gotta kinda have a PhD in crypto. We wanted to make it as easy to use as PayPal. And then lastly, we solved the problem of compliance in a pretty major way, because, like, right now, if you receive money from someone in crypto, like, how do you know it was really them? Right? This is like the classic Binance lawsuit problem. Like, if you deposit funds at Binance, how does Binance know it was really you that deposited that money? And it wasn't some fake account that was controlled by some terrorists, which is exactly, what this lawsuit that they just got like a month ago was about. So we solved that problem. We actually solved all these problems at the same time, all at once. And yeah, the project's gotten considerably better since you invested in it, which is ideal. I think, I imagine, I hope. So the reason I'm doing this is I've been my name is Michał Krzysztof Pospieszalski. I'm a Polish immigrant. I came here when I was 10 out of communist Poland. My parents were both solidarity activists, so basically we got deported for being anti-communist, and that's how we ended up in, Charlottesville, Virginia.
I think that's a badge of honor.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty proud of it, and then my dad became chief scientist at National Radio Astronomy Observatory in Charlottesville, so, like, he's actually responsible for, if you see, like, a black hole discovery of deep space astronomy that uses radio telescopes, that was probably done with his instruments. He's the biggest guy on earth in radio astronomy instruments, essentially, like all the receivers and amplifiers that make us observe things in the sky with radio waves. He's the expert on that. So he actually added a lot to the state of America. And I hope to follow his footsteps, but in a completely different way by, making crypto free, private, and awesome. So like my first three jobs, first I worked as a contractor for the US Navy at a place called IntelliBridge. We made a piece of Intel software for the US Navy that got bought. So we left that job, and then I worked as a software security expert for the next two companies, which was Cigital and LECG, and they both also got bought. So what I did there was I was, pretty much on the cutting edge of white hat hacking. I also worked on the Antrim County voting case. There's a bunch of, ex posts of me and Mario about that. So I'm a very much a pro freedom hacker and a guy that wants to make everybody safe. And I'm anti, black hat essentially. So this project was my attempt. And I think hopefully at this point, I imagine a successful attempt at stopping the theft and fraud in crypto while also solving a bunch of other problems like compliance, digital identity, and privacy. So that's why I'm here, because I'm on a mission to save the earth from the bad black hat hackers being a white hat hacker. And that is American Fortress. Ta-da. You've got the shirt. So here we are.
Well, I couldn't be happier with America right now. as someone that's worked in this industry as well, that cares about the same things and more than we've gotten into here, uh, we get to wake up as people trying to white hat and build things that preserve our freedom and expand our liberties and improve our qualities of life. What's made America great is the ingenuity of the American people. And most of us as entrepreneurs in this country felt pressured to flee this country for building and doing the things that make our country greater. We were being lawfared and persecuted and choke pointed and all the things. And I just have to say, I am so grateful. The end of 2025, a year where I feel safe, I
Yep.
feel welcomed, I feel appreciated for the good work that we do building America's future and its fortress. And so, this is a great way to close out the year, reconvening, 4 years into having worked together on this project and charting a course, for the years ahead. And I mean, look at privacy coins right now, right? Look at
Yeah.
look what's going on right now, right? Zcash is of the large caps, the number one highest performing, um, because it aligns with the values and principles of the United States of America, right? I'm assuming you watched the commissioner of the SEC's speech. What was it, a week ago?
I
And
did
talk-
not watch it, but I did read the news story about it, right? And it's
Yeah. It was exactly what you said, which is that we want these things for this country. We don't want everyone's trades telegraphed, where you can see and front run everything. Well, we want to make sure to keep the American people safe while preserving and protecting your freedoms. And privacy is part of that answer. When Monero and Zcash and these things were launching, it was a very different climate for crypto. I mean, Bitcoin was under threat, right? The future of Americans building around Bitcoin was putting your life and your family and your well-being at risk. To be an entrepreneur and a developer and a creator, a supporter in any meaningful way, you were likely going to have a regulator or a law enforcement agency come and take a very close look at your life for just doing good for our future and believing in a better future. And so it's what a very different time that we're in.
yeah, and I can
Privacy coins are winning. This year is going to end with privacy being the number one performer.
which is just okay. And so let me give you the backstory of what it's like to be, so people ask me like, Miha, why did it take 4 years? Well, I had to call it a wallet, a custody system, a compliance solution, everything else except the basic thing that it was, which is a really amazing privacy tech without mixing, which is really the only thing the regulators were like concerned about. And but we couldn't pitch that.
Well,
So
wait, just to be clear, mixing, whoever coined that term, it sounds like, laundry.
right. Well, I
It's
mean, to be fair, if you're mixing, you're guaranteed to be committing money laundering on every block, right? Now, what kind of money laundering is it? Is it like, cocaine money with coffee money, or is it like you're mixing two different coffee monies? The point is you don't know, but you have a mathematical guarantee that there is laundering of some kind. Now, it could just be very innocent laundering, or it could be like really mega evil laundering. So, as a pro freedom guy, I want to give the users the option to do what they want, right? So it's really encouraging that this administration and where we're going now, that is okay. And the one thing I'm rooting for is that the Tornado Cash developers get pardoned. I hope that's coming on Christmas. That would kind of like complete the circle, because I do think commercially it is useful to have privacy without mixing, and I'm a major proponent of it. At the same time, the user should have a choice, because commercially it is useful to know the provenance of funds. It is an important thing that, like, an exchange, for example, has to know. But before I get into all that, let me just back up and be like, yeah, man, we first launched this thing at Swiss Fortress like a year ago because we were like, okay, maybe it's safe here, and And now all of a sudden, like everything, just the privacy kept going, going, going. So now we're like, all right, well, let's do
America.
American Fortress and do it first because it's a Wyoming C corp. We invented it here. I live in America. I'm American. I've been here for like 43 years, right? So, I want to bring the ingenuity to the space in this way. And it's been a really tough process because we couldn't properly raise, right? Like one issue was everybody's like, Miha, why isn't this like an open source L1? It's like, well, if I was an L1, then sure, maybe I could be Zcash and have a really big TGE or whatever, right? But the point is that's not the ideal solution. The ideal solution isn't you have to go use some special chain to get privacy. The ideal solution, you're using Bitcoin and you get privacy. You're using Ethereum and you get privacy. You get 0G and you get privacy, right? So we were just like, okay, we are software. So then we went this other route, which also is, founded in America. America's the home of invention. So we started patenting everything. And that's how we got funding. But it was still like, every once in a while we'd get $1 million check, and I'd be looking at some of these other projects. I'm like, wow, they raised like 40 million. We raised 7, built, a better thing. But man, it was hard. It was really, really hard. And now finally, just now, when A16Z's like, yeah, privacy's the thing. And by the way, DID for agents is the thing. And I'm like, yeah, we built all that. We've had it for years. It's all here. And they passed on us like 8 months ago, actually. And then now the conversation's happening again, right? And it's just like, but 8 months ago, I pitched them a wallet, right? They were like, yeah, well, wallets don't do that great. Your wallet tokens aren't that awesome. And I'm just like, yeah, not really a wallet token. But yeah, I mean, so everything you're saying about how hard it's been, like, it's been an intensely personal and painful journey for me because sometimes because of these restrictions, I couldn't pay my people, but we all stayed in. Everybody stayed in. No one quit. Like straight up, like no.
You're not about to be an overnight success.
No, no. Well, I mean, now it certainly seems like it, but I'm still like, look, I'm a
Oh,
guy.
right place and right time is not
Yeah.
an easy thing to do.
I mean, because it's like all of a sudden, it's privacy plays and like, oh, we got new tech. And I'm like, well, I already have granted patents. And obviously to have granted patents, I should have started 3 years ago. Right. So yeah, we've been at this that long. And before this was even longer. This was originally Justice Ranvier's Bit 47 pay codes for Bitcoin. Which now we've improved to like, a really amazing place, which I'll show you. But again, the Samurai Wallet developers, they used Bit 47. Um, and that was fine, but then they made it a hardcore coin join mixer and jail, And so again, but now it's like mixing's okay, but again, you want to give the market a range of solutions, and you want the users to be able to pick the best thing for them. And my personal belief is the best thing is privacy without mixing, because then there's really no compromise. Because from like a functional user point of view, do you really need to mix funds? The answer is no, and we'll get into this. But like, the common perception is privacy has to be mixing, and it does not. And I'll show you. So thank you for reflecting the past 4 years of my life back to me in such an eloquent way. And I'm glad we're here and we can finally talk about it freely. And it's really great to, have a conversation with you about this, because I know how pro freedom and pro, hey, we need to be able to innovate and not be worried for our lives, for example, this is to you. So, it's terrific to be sharing this story with you, because I imagine we're extremely aligned in what we're trying to do, with goodness for the world.
Amen.
One of the things I think is interesting, Michal, is that back when Bitcoin first became a thing, a lot of people thought that you were anonymous just because your address, your receiving account wasn't your name.
Yeah.
Fact that you couldn't read the address, they thought that that made you anonymous. Well, we've all realized that's definitely not the case. Bitcoin is extremely traceable, extremely trackable. It is not private in any way. It's really interesting that you're actually adding a human readable address in order to make it private.
Correct. So the let me just show you. So first of all, why is Bitcoin not private? Well, fundamentally, you no matter how private you want to get, you have to give somebody a receive address, right? So now that person can inspect that receive address. Moreover, when you send funds, and I'll just keep using Bitcoin as an example because it's the Godfather, obviously, they can see where the funds came from, right? So Satoshi's original intention was that we use what we call stealth addresses, and somehow this magically happens, between the people. So what I would call a manual stealth address? So manual stealth addresses, say I'm trying to send money to Brock, right? And Brock like gets in his wallet and he just generates another address, and he knows that that address is specifically for me. And he's got this very sophisticated spreadsheet where he's tracking like this address is Mehow, and this address is Joe Ross, and this address is so and so, right? And so he gives me that address and I send to that address. And now, because only me and him talked about it on Signal, only the two of us know that that's our address. Right now, if you maintain discipline like that throughout all the crypto, you'd essentially have an enemy, right? Um, but no one does. What ends up happening is you have well-known addresses and people get lazy and they use the same address, and then things like ENS and Unstoppable and Friend.tech and Solana name service and Handley and all these name services, they all map to a static address on a particular chain. So now you can just go into like Unstoppable and just like look up how much money somebody received. So the first secret to getting anonymity and privacy on all blockchains is to just use stealth addresses all the time. And to do that, you need to automate it, because most users won't even follow what I just said, right? And they'll be like, man, I got to keep a spreadsheet, blah blah blah, right? So what we did at American Fortress is we created the Fortress name system, where we call it public names, private transactions. And all you do is you can publicize your name, like my name in the wallet I'm about to demonstrate is like Mehow6 in the beta. And I can put Mehow6 up on Instagram, and I can just say, send me all the crypto that's compatible with Fortress names, which is MetaMask is shortly compatible with this because we're adding this as a snap. We have Zero G, we have Litecoin, we have Dash, we have a bunch of wallets adopting the SDK that allows this to happen. And what happens when a sender's wallet gets my name, the second it knows my name, it can instantly compute a stealth address between that counterparty and me, meaning it's a unique address for that particular chain that is only known by the sender and the receiver. And we're the only such universal, easy to use solution on planet Earth. The other benefit of this, along with some side proofs that we're running, is now you know exactly who you received the money from. So you're remaining anonymous and private to the world. So third-party observers know nothing about what you're doing, but you and your counterparty know exactly what's going on, which is the ideal thing. So this is one of the ways that we're solving it. There's a couple other ways that I'm going to share with you that we're also solving it to get to like essentially a functionally equivalent to Zcash, except without having to use another chain. So yeah, I can show it to you if you want, or we can ask me another question. Or Brock, you can give me another brilliant piece of very eloquent commentary because you're so freaking good at it.
Leaving.
Let's see. Seeing is believing. All right, cool. So let's go in here. I'll share a screen. And I'm going to do entire screen. So it might be a little small, but the reason is that I got to show you the explorers. So, okay, you guys see my screen? So this is the wallet dancing around. All right, cool. So if you look in here, you see that all the transactions are sent to name with very few exceptions. There's a few legacy ones here because I'm sending or receiving with legacy addresses. So this wallet initially looks like a regular wallet. I can go in here, generate an Ethereum address or Bitcoin address, for example. So here's BTC. But the way we want you to use the wallet is you just like, okay, if I want to send, say, 10 cents of BTC, which is very little BTC, and then I want to send it to a user like Jakub Zed. I just hit next, and I unlock the keys in memory, and that's it. I just sent the crypto, right? So you see here, everything looks like PayPal, but this is actually completely decentralized. And then all the addresses are stealth addresses. So like, simple example, we'll go to Zero G here, hit View, go into Explorer. And now you've got the transaction that I sent to Jakub Zed, and you see like this address. So so first of all, how does our wallet know this address? It dynamically computes it the second it knows the counterparty's name. There is DeFi that's running that has metadata, but all you can do as a third-party observer, meaning anyone, is to compute your unique stealth address with whatever that counterparty is. So you'll be able to see in our metadata, here are all the names of the wallets, and here's their metadata. But all you can do as a, say, attacker or malcontent or whatever is send those people money with a stealth address. So you don't know what else they've got going on at all. No one does, not American Fortress, not Matterfi, which is the holdco that created all this tech. Not any of our clients. We don't know what you're doing. It's truly, completely, wildly private. And then, just to give you some more value on top of that, we made a hardware wallet. So that's here. It's made by Samsung, Tangent, and us. Also patent pending. We made a encrypted chat. So this is really cool because this uses the same key set he's using to send and receive. So when you send someone money and you chat with them, you're guaranteed to be talking to the same guy with the same private key. Um, and then on top of that, we built a DID system. So this is not in the beta because I don't want to we have so many features. We're just like getting them out like one at a time now. Now that it's all okay. Thanks. Thanks, Brock and government and everybody that's been campaigning for our freedom. Um, yeah, you can also send your digital identity. So what's awesome about this is even an exchange in our exchange software, which is adopted by Brinks already. So we're deploying this to Brinks. The exchange software has the same log. So it knows exactly who it received the money from. And to answer your question, Joe, about anonymity, well, you could have a name like Smurf Neblin, right? And now no one knows who Smurf Neblin is. Or you could have a name like I am, Kim Kardashian, and you could put it up on, her Instagram. So now everybody knows that that's her name and that's her. So what are the two differences between that? Well, in all cases, still no one knows what Kim is doing with her crypto, right? Even if everybody knows that's her, they still don't know what she's doing with it, which is awesome. But also you could have an anonymous name, that now if you using that anonymous name, now you need to transact with Binance, and Binance is like, hey, show me a proof of funds. Like, where did this money come from? So by the way, we do all that. We have these proofs that allow you to prove the provenance of your funds to specific counterparties only in a completely decentralized way at your own sole option right inside the chat. So now you could say, oh, actually, Smurf Neblin is Michał Pospieszalski from Wyoming. And by the way, here's a copy of my ID signed, by some cryptographic proof. Now, note that these cryptographic proofs are not fallible once the math is done. So this is actually greater KYC than what you have in TradFi. So when I see, because like a week ago, I saw these government posts where they're like, well, we want, everybody that's in crypto, when we ask them to be able to totally provide the information, right? Like a regulator should be able to ask a regulated exchange, who's sending them money. And a regulated exchange should be able to answer that question. And for the first time on earth, we have the tech that does that. So quite excited about this. And then the last thing I'm going to show you, the last little bit of alpha that's really cool is you might notice there's a privacy leak here, right? Where's the privacy leak? Well, in this transaction, if I send it to Jakob Zed, now no one knows it's me and Jakob Zed. So to third-party observers, this is Smurf Neblin. They don't know it's us, right? So high degree of privacy and anonymity, yet we don't have to change the chain. But Jakob knows that he received money from this address. Now, this address is just actually my zero-G testnet faucet where I've been just sending a bunch of people money. So the way our tech works without modifying the chains is if you have an unspent output and you're trying to spend $1 to find the unspent output with like $1.20 and spend that one. So now to the recipient of the funds, you're exposing that one address. Obviously, massively superior than what's been happening, which is monster piles of phishing and theft and fraud. But in an ideal situation, we want that ZK style functionality where we can't see the amount of funds in the source, right? And we can't trace it back. So what we have for that is a new feature that has been adopted by Zero G, which we're going to be releasing. I'm going to just give you this. This is going to be the slide on this, which is called. It is called. Whoops. It is called, there it is, it's called Hide My Balance. So you'll be able to hit the button here, Hide My Balance, pay a little extra in transaction fees. And when you do that, God, Adobe, I don't want you to sell me on stuff right now. When you do that, the recipient will not be able to see the source of funds. So what this is mixing without mixing. It guarantees that there's no co-mingling with funds whatsoever, but functionally, you have the exact same features as you have with Zcash, but you can now have it on any chain. Like you just point me to a chain and I'll make it work. This does require the chains to work with us. They have to essentially deploy some of our DeFi there, but it is, again, fully private DeFi. This is why we're not in L1, because I don't want to get in the way of adoption of privacy because I have a token agenda per se. That said, with our partners like Dash, Litecoin, they have MWeb, they have Dash has CoinJoin. We are supporting those features. So you'll also be able to, when you're sending Dash, you'll be able to hit a button here that says, mix it. But you'll still, here's what's awesome. Even when the funds are mixed, you still get this beautiful log. I'm gonna sound Trumpian here, but big beautiful log. The log is still a cryptographic proof of who you got the funds from, even if they were mixed. No one's done it. Like, so this is why I'm just like, yeah, like I feel really blessed that I ran into this, but honestly, I didn't run into it. I've been trying to, make it work for the last 4 years. So that's the quick demo, questions, feedback.
One question I have from the tech side,
Okay.
it looks like you've made Ethereum and other kind of account-based blockchains work more similarly to a UTXO model where you have a different receive address
Correct.
and then it kind of combines them. Is that right?
Yeah. So like from a user's point of view, you don't see the wallet's tracking all the different addresses for you. And by the way, when you restore from seed, all this comes back. Your entire PayPal log, all your credentials, everything's been encrypted. Only you can get to it. No one else can see it. Like all third-party observers see is a blob of stuff working. That's it. There's just the system's getting users. That's all they can tell. But all this comes back. And yeah, we do make Ethereum essentially work like a UTXO chain. And the default settings are in UTXO chains where there's no penalty for spending for multiple accounts. We actually do a different stealth address because the address space between each user is 4.2 billion addresses. So it's a while before we run out of addresses. Like me and Brock can transact, I can send Brock 4.2 billion transactions and it'll still be the same address, a new address on every transaction. But on Ethereum, for example, you do get, there's more transaction fees, right? So what we do there is we just send to the same address. So like if I'm sending Brock Ethereum, it'll go to a stealth address. But all this is user settable. So like the user in the wallet will be able to say, hey, actually, even for UTXO chains like Bitcoin, I just want to use a single stealth address for a tuple of users. That's unique because from a privacy point of view, that's mostly what you need. The extra stealth addresses don't really add that much value, honestly. But it was like an original detail of BIP47, so we kept it in, and it's something that users can choose to select if they want.
I've got a question for both of you.
Yep.
One of the topics that, has been hot on X and other social media forums over the past couple weeks has been digital identity. The UK is looking like they're going to be doing a national digital identity. A lot of freedom advocates seem to be pretty concerned about this. Can you explain kind of what the difference of like a centralized government mandated digital identity is and what that would impose on the people versus a decentralized sovereign digital identity that you offer?
Well, they're compatible together, right? I think there is part of this is I haven't, until recently really had a forum where I get to educate people on what's possible. So generally when regulators are like national ID, everybody in crypto is like, hell no, national ID, because there's going to be some giant overlord monitoring thing in the sky that's just like keeping track of what we're doing. And nobody wants that. I don't even think the government regulators want that, except if you're in North Korea. I mean, sure, Kim Jong-un almost certainly wants to know exactly what's happening in North Korea to every single citizen. So he's going to deploy that tech. But like when a regulator says, I want national ID, what does that mean? Right? Is it mean like, it's like a centralized stable coin that's running on a server somewhere and everybody's got an ID attached to it? Yeah, that doesn't sound good. And this administration and pretty much every governor, and certainly Florida, for example, explicitly have said, hell no, we're not going to do that because that's not American and it's not pro freedom, right? Which is the correct answer. So this whole idea of like the CBDC has kind of died a swift death here. Now in Europe, man, are they happy to regulate? Like those guys are just like, I mean, Micah. So we filed Micah, accidentally put my address in there. Week later, I'm getting targeted for a kidnapping in Amsterdam. I called the DOJ. They're like, cool, we'd like to help you catch these guys. And yeah. And then nothing happens in Amsterdam. That's all I'm going to say. Right. So uh, I didn't. Needless to say, I didn't go to freaking Amsterdam, right? Because I like to keep my fingers.
But so what happened?
I can't say more than I just said. I literally cannot say more than what I just said.
We'll leave it at that.
There's a lot more to that story, but you
One
know,
day.
when you have one day I'll be able to tell the story. I cannot. All I say is the U.S. law enforcement was terrific, and the European law enforcement was absolute dog shit. And specifically, the criminals were targeting Amsterdam because they knew already a priori how lax it was. So if you're in crypto and you're in Amsterdam, watch out. Straight up, if you're like a founder, because these guys know, hey, you're doing a TGE, you got a big crypto project, you're somebody in your company's got stacks. They're sitting in a hardware wallet somewhere. Therefore, what's the easiest way to get that a hold of that? It is to kidnap you and threaten your family and all that. So, dark side of regulation and improperly implemented regulation. Right now, let's go back to your question of centralized identity. So here's how we do it, which I would posit um, answers all the regulators' questions and all the users' questions and remains decentrally permissionless, right? So the government obviously wants you to be able to prove your ID if you're doing something like, say, you're cashing out 100,000 of Bitcoin at Binance or Kraken or wherever. Like the government wants to go to Kraken and say, hey, what if this dude's a terrorist? Give me all the info you have on him without breaking any decentralization, ultimately, right? Well, maybe the government doesn't care. Maybe they're just like, actually, just give me all the data, if they're the British government, but not the US government. Yay. So the way we do it is it's a proof that you obtain in the wallet. So say you go to a sum sub, so we have backend providers that we can hook up to. They create the proof. The proof can be anywhere from a full copy of your passport, and that proof is encrypted and then digitally signed by a signing authority, which can be a government, it can be American Fortress, it can be anybody that people trust. So the same as like VeriSign for websites. You go to Microsoft.com, you can click on the certificate signed by VeriSign, this is really Microsoft.com. In our case, same thing except for digital identity. And now you can get in that decentralized chat and you can share your identity with that counterparty. So now, just specifically in the case of you transacting with Coinbase's or Binance's or Kraken's custody system, you are proving your identity, yet no third party, no bad guy knows what's going on. So
That solves for the database leak issue. If
yeah,
once you get your passport over, your ID over, if the company doesn't maintain perfect security, then they dox all their users. We've seen that happen way too many times.
yeah. So I mean, what happens in this case is, okay, now say the sum sub gets hacked, right? So now, like, the identities of all the people that obtain cryptographic proofs get hacked. The way our system works, you still can't trace that back to anything. Like, the only person that knows what's going on with your identity and your crypto and your digital assets and your stuff in custody is you, right? There's no, like, yeah, you can get a list of users and you could hack into some sub and get their IDs maybe, but now do you know what they did on blockchain? The answer is no, right? So that's the difference in what we're doing and what I think some people fear isn't going to happen. What they fear is there's going to be some giant centralized thing in the sky that just hits like the monitor button and now they know everything. And in our case, you still have to subpoena the individual, the counterparty in the case. But now that individual, whether that's a custodian, an enterprise, or an individual, has the unique ability to irrevocably prove what they did while staying private and anonymous themselves. Right. So, and this is incredibly useful. This is like if Binance is running this system, and yeah, I mean, I've been kind of saying this like, hey, guy, we're over here, but it's like in crypto, it's kind of like, what's the biggest narrative right now? Everybody follows that. And so when you're like the small company that's doing privacy, you're not necessarily getting the audience that you need to solve the problems that you're like that are like glaringly obvious in front of you. But partially because of Brock and the world and you guys and the podcast and all the awesome people we have on the team, like DNA, LDA, IBC, Mario, all our partners, like the story is getting out there, right? So I hope to be having these conversations with the regulators on like, actually, you can have exactly what you want and piss off zero people. Like, unless you really want to be totalitarians, like 100%. Now, if I pose this question to Starmer, he might say yes, but, but for most government politicians, the answer is no, I don't want to be a totalitarian. So that's what I'm here to enable.
Well, off the show, I'm going to introduce you to someone later today.
Sweet. Fantastic, Brock. I'm glad we're here and it's all like aligned 4 years later. And we're here to solve some monstrous problems, right? So very pleased to do that. Joe, next question. We got 20 minutes, so keep hitting me with the alpha. Although so far I think I've been pretty condensed. I got all the stuff I want to get across. So it's
Yeah,
all
it's
your
pretty
show.
cool, man.
Yeah.
Like I was saying,
Another second since you've gotten out what you wanted to say. I just want to
Yeah.
comment in
No.
general about one of the subjects.
Yeah.
It's Talking about the U.S. and Europe and CBDCs. I met with many of the world's central bankers throughout the years, right? Uh, uh, I've always found, in general, the CBDC conversation somewhat humorous. Because I've met central bankers that want to create the big bad scary CBDC, and then most actually don't even know what it is, right?
exactly.
So
You don't know what the real options are.
some of the real options are. But I love going down the rabbit hole. I'm like, let's just talk about this for a second. So you're a central bank. Well, first of all, if you create this, who are you harming, right? Forget about the end user, right, and our privacy and our freedom for a second. Let's just talk about market structure. Who are the biggest victims and who would be hurt the most from such a development? Most likely the financial institutions, who are not without power and influence and lobbying and otherwise. But let's forget about who's getting harmed and who the constituents are that would actually be the opposition, which is generally financial institutions.
Yep.
Let's just now talk about the practical realities of central banks. So, how are you going to go out and get integrations? How are you going to go figure out how to actually get deployment and distribution? This is so outside of their DNA. Central banks are going to go figure out how to have a sales arm and actually go figure out how to do handle all of the practical realities of running a business. I've had these meetings and I've said, I'm just going to wrap this up right now because I don't have time for stupid hour. We'll have a conversation around actually bringing stable coins and this type of infrastructure to your country. Let's just full stop right here on the idea that you, the central bank, are about to run this stuff, because it's just it's an asinine conversation. You already have financial institutions in your country. You have banks in your countries. You have payment licensing in your country. If you, this African country or whatever, actually want to try and bring innovation to your country, let's stick with the existing framework of what you already have. Let the private sector do what the private sector does best: build, innovate, deploy, and compete, and deal with all the things. The idea that you, the central bank, are actually somehow going to figure out how to do all the things that the private sector does, which government has never really been able to do. I don't care which country you're in.
Yeah.
Right. Let's just get over this whole conversation. I've never been very concerned with CBDCs because once you start actually thinking through the 0 to 1, you get
They're never gonna tear
not going to be able to do that as much as they want to. And there may be somebody with a hard on in government that's excited about the idea, certainly in North Korea, where they're going to do, have to eat whatever shit, the government bakes up and tries to force down your throat like you're a duck or a goose, turn into foie gras. But, fortunately, we in America, we are lucky. And again, we are in a period of time where these, ridiculous concepts are dead on arrival, thankfully.
Yep. Yeah. Thank God. Yeah.
And but the Europeans, not to harp on them too much, are I can't tell you which central bank, but I was meeting with one of the heads of the central banks in Europe. And unfortunately, it's a kind of a meaningless conversation because if you're the head of a central bank in a European country, you don't really have any say because you're part of the EU, right? And so, but
Unless you're Poland or Hungary, place you argue, but you're still under the yoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Continue. You're right.
a funny conversation. So you expect this is going to be a 15-minute meeting. Ends up going for 2 hours. And then finally, it was a lovely meeting. This is many years ago now. Back when John McAfee and people would travel around with me to meet governments and things, and and talk cyber. But the head of the central bank takes me into his office, and he's like, Brock, I can't say anything in that official meeting, but now that it's just the two of us, Godspeed. I'm not allowed to say this. I was not here, but for the good of the world, for the good of Europe, you guys keep building what you're doing. I'm not allowed to say this, but I am rooting for you in every way possible. I'm not allowed to tell you this, but thank you. As someone that sits in a position to understand how important this is, not just to Europe, but the world, to you and all your counterparts and everybody, working on these techs and building this infrastructure. You are what the world needs. So I didn't say this, but Godspeed.
Great. I mean, that's my sneaking suspicion. My sneaking suspicion is if you explain the options, specifically explain our option, they'll be like, well, what's the downside? There's no downside. Yeah, sure. So, like, I'm already talking to the state of Wyoming, which they did front. I have a contact there, and they're looking to expand their budget, and then they did express an interest in being a digital identity signer, right? So that'd be perfect because now somebody gets in our wallet or gets in MetaMask and they're like, well, my public identity is Smurf Neblin. That's my favorite example of joke word. And uh and but I do need to prove my identity to certain people because like I want access to that CFI, or I want to buy a car, or I'm sending, with my Smurf Neblin wallet, I want to, send 100K for a mortgage deposit, right? So that's, and now I just go to state of Wyoming, I get a digital ID signed. Better than any physical ID for sure. 100%, you know. So, man, lots of excitement about that. And
Glad shout out for a great state, Wyoming.
yeah, hell yeah. I'm right here.
Yeah, no, and by the way, as a state government, what they've done to embrace innovation early on, you got to give credit
Amazing. Yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
Wyoming got it
Yep.
and led the charge more than any state in the nation, and so gotta love the Wyoming government. They've done good work for us, and they were
Yep.
brave. Future favors, and I love the courageous. Courage is my favorite virtue.
Yeah, I mean, and here it's in abundance, so they, we're supporting front. I met the governor, I met the guys running front, and then instantly, like a week later at a meeting, I got to show them the tech. They were like, wow, this is really cool tech. So, it's not like any other government agency where there's all this red tape. It like really seems like, they were like, okay, so here's what we're doing next. We're expanding the program. And then, we'd like to get alternate, more solutions like yours, potentially in the front. And yeah, I mean, if you can get a state to become a digital signer of identities, I mean, that's about as trustworthy as it gets, you know? So it's very cool. Very cool. Joe, next question. Brock, thank you for the awesome story. I loved it. Super aligned.
Just commenting in that line, I think that, to be clear, I'm not an advocate of CBDCs. I do not want them, but people say, "Oh, with the CBDC, they can shut your money off." Have you not been paying attention for what happened the past 4 years? How many people got debanked? So, it's just super impressive that you've been working this entire time, and your passion is pretty obvious. Going back to anonymity, privacy, and sovereignty, how
Yep.
do you see this in what you're building kind of as a tool for people? I think, kind of one of the libertarian ethos is that we don't have to use force or coercion, that we can simply build better options and people will voluntarily start to use those. So how do you see American Fortress as a tool to help people, reclaim their sovereignty, reclaim their freedom, and maintain those rights?
Yeah, so I mean, we start off at the sort of base layer of it's fully private, right? You can just get a name that's like, completely unrecognizable, like ABC1234. And now still, even if your name is Meow, you still don't know what Meow's transactions are. But, you can now be like, hey, I'm a totally anonymous person and I want to transact with them. Now, some counterparty may be completely cool with that, right? So like ABC1234 can transact with, user ID Meow however they want. And then after that, if you want to reveal who you are because you want access to certain things, then you have the tool set to do that. So that's how we started. It's essentially a libertarian project, right? Like
Mhm.
now, if I want to prove my identity to somebody, I can, but I don't have to. And there's no one, there's no master key somewhere that like I'll let somebody see what I'm doing unless I specifically say so. But when I do say so, I have tools that don't exist in normal paper reality. I have the ability, like, so the system I showed you, these cryptographic proofs are transitive. So if like I send money to Brock and Brock sends money to Joe Ross, and Joe, you send money to Bitcoin, I mean, so Binance, now you can prove to Binance it came from Mehow. Like if all of us, like we can just get in Daisy and just create this proof, right? So it's really quite cool, right? Which, and that doesn't exist in regular world, because in regular world they're like, prove where these funds came from. Okay, here's some paperwork, right? And how many people, probably, in America, like, you know, don't necessarily give exactly a right paperwork or even slightly doctored paperwork about proof of funds, right? I mean, it's like, so what we're doing is we're giving the fintechs a better tools than they had before without ruining anybody's sovereignty, right? And the user just has to opt in, and the opt in is just commercial incentive. Like no one's forcing you to anything, but if you want a certain thing, here's the rules, and then you got to abide by the rules. But now, fortunately, you have like, imagine right now proving like where funds came from using a regular wallet, right? Now, even if you want to follow the rules, you're just like, oh man, this was 2 years ago. I don't know what I did January 12th, 2023 with this crypto. I couldn't really tell you where this money came from, right? I mean, so that's how we're handling that in American Fortress.
What comes next? Both for American Fortress and for like the industry in general. Things are very friendly right now, and obviously we hope that that mood continues. But how do we kind of solidify things right now? What steps can we be taking as an industry, as individuals, to help solidify and guarantee things going forward?
I am moving as fast as possible to finish funding to get our fairly modest TGE to deploy this stuff, because I want to get it in the hands of the government as soon as possible. Like I want them to see, like, be using it and be like, oh, actually, this solves our problem. So now we can, then the only people that are going CFTC are the true totalitarians, and that's a very small minority, I think, right? So ultimately, I don't think there's any incompatibility between our community and the government community. We just have to educate them. So like my job here is to, like, for example, even for Zcash, we'd love to implement our stuff on Zcash, because even if you mix, with our tech, you still have that proof of funds. Like you still know for sure who it came from. So now there is this essentially a religious argument. If you mixed, and funds got commingled, but you knew where they came from and you got the exact amount that you were supposed to get from exactly the right person, did it really get commingled? It's literally a religious argument at that point. Right? So there, and and so we can even make mixing okay with what we're doing. So I want to just put all these options on the table and say, look, like, yeah, hey, first of all, none of this is illegal. Like people should be able to mix if they want. But yeah, if you as a commercial entity don't want to deal with mixed funds, that's also fine. That's just as legal as the people who want to mix, because that's that entity's choice. Right. So the whole point of libertarianism isn't that, it's 100% always, pro freedom for the individual. No, it's pro freedom for everybody, including collectives of individuals, aka corporations, right? So and the governments that they elected, right? So we're here to just get the tools out as fast as possible, so that we don't go back, right? So we got 2 years, 3 years, we got 3 years. I hope that's enough time, right? And I hope I don't want to get into politics, but I hope, we don't have a lame duck Congress, come fall. And I hope just I'm happy with the way this country is going. Uh, the vibes aren't that happy though, right? I'd like the vibes to get happier, just overall, so that so that like people realize, like, actually we're going in a good place, and it's all good. And then that gives us the time and also the legislative backing to like really deploy the stuff, because it's not like I can just like all of a sudden everything's good. We can just deploy everything instantly. There's still a process. There's still code review. There's still audits. There's still, software security review. There's more adoption discussions. We certainly haven't gotten the entire world to adopt our tech, although we made some good progress. But I mean, you know, um, we definitely need the time to get it out there to save Earth.
What's the timeline look like?
Oh, I mean, it's definitely 26. Like, it'll all be out probably Q2. Like, a lot of it's
Cool.
going out Q1. So production, you can expect the wall in production Q1. You can expect custody in production in Q2. You can expect the balance binding, hide my balance tech probably early Q2. Um, and we're filing the paperwork, the rest of the patents on that now, and then actually we're going to just publish it. The second that the patent is filed, I will just publish the entire method, so everybody knows what we're doing. So it's like we're doing like an open code, and then if somebody buys us and then they want to open source everything, I'm cool with that too. But I do got to get my investors, the few people that this whole time, Brock amongst them, Moon Pursuit Capital, big shout. Like I got people that have allowed me to shout them out that are privacy proponents. They've been supporting us the whole time. Yeah, like those people deserve a reward because man, they took a bet. It wasn't a small bet. It's like, hey, this company every 6 months can't make its payroll because we run out of money because we got to have X amount of devs, and that's just the truth. This is the space we're in. Every time there's a downturn in crypto, no funding unless you're like one of the anointed few. And so now we're becoming the anointed few, which is cool, except it's been 4 years in the making. But the people that helped us along the way, absolutely, I need to, my ultimate dream would be like if eventually like 2 years from now it's all open source, but I need somebody to buy us to do that, Brock. So, some people.
Well, let's get you launched one step at a time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's the plan.
Do you have a date for the TGE yet?
I don't because I'm waiting for exchange approvals that are, so we've gotten approved to every L2 there is. And then, because privacy is cool now the L1s, the big ones, which I won't name names, but we're basically applied to all of them. And we hope very quickly that the C, approves us. I don't know who I'm talking about, but, US based company, marriage made in heaven, privacy, America. So once we get that approved, we'll have a date. But we also may not get approved. We may go on DEX, but no, we're certainly going on SEX, 100%. But it's just a matter of which SEX. And once we have that, then cool. We filed MICA, like I said, we filed MICA many, many moons ago. So we're approved in Europe already, even though it had some unintended security consequences for me personally. But yeah,
So you're launched, you're out there, everything's working. How do you grow this? I think one of the hardest parts is getting people to use the tech. What's your what's your strategy for after this is all rolled out to get people to start using it?
Yeah, so I mean, that's already happening. We're B2B2C essentially. So there's ecosystems that are like, yeah, well, we want privacy on our chain. And then this is what you got to do to use it, get a name, right? And we're gonna make it so that the names are what you'll be able to download the production wallet for free. You'll be able to send, but you can't receive until you buy a name. Now, the names are super affordable. It's like $20 a year for a top level name or $10 a year for like a dot subdomain name. So this is like very affordable. There is a cost to keeping it fully decentralized. So there is an infra that we're running, which is a reason we collect money for the names. It's not like, purely, sort of corporate economics. There's actually a tokenomics system behind the thing that keeps it decentralized and anonymous. That does require, so whatever chains my DeFi lives on, I have to pay those chains and their token. Therefore, we have to have revenue, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so in terms of adoption so far, I mean, there's a lot of people on the beta. You can go to AmericanFortressIO.com, download the beta, get in our Discord, get in our Telegram, talk to the admins, grab some so the beta just works on test nets, but they're just as real tokens as main nets. I mean, it's the same thing, So you can just play around and send yourself names, and the name you reserve in beta is just a free name. It has nothing to do with production. If you want to reserve yourself a production name, you also go to American Fortress IO. There's a big button that says reserve my name. And then you'll go into our system and be able to get a name. And then you get a code at the end of that then lets you tie your production seed to the real name when the wallet comes out in production. So if somebody's like really attached to a name right now, Brock, I already got you. Joe, I already got you. Then, uh, then you can buy it. You can reserve it now. Right. So, yeah. And, we feel that like $10 a year is, a pretty fair price for what we're bringing to the table.
That's great. Meow, your passion and your excitement is palpable. I think that's one of the things that everybody notices when they first meet you. So thank you for what you're building. The industry needs something like this. We need people like you who are building because they truly believe in it and they're building something for the betterment of the world and of this country. So we really, really appreciate it. We appreciate working with you. Any parting words before we wrap this up?
No, I just did a little CTA, so pay attention to when the token go. I mean, I think that'll do well. Obviously, if you're an investor, come reach out to us. You can probably know Brock. Brock knows us. We know DNA. We love DNA. DNA's events. In this industry, I would say I'll conclude by doing a shout out to you guys. In this industry, there's a lot of people half delivering or not delivering at all. Right, like the industry, it's just so cooked. At the same time, there's a few people that are. And then, you guys kind of sponsored us. Like I couldn't afford to sponsor your events because, like I said, we're where we are. But we did a trade essentially, and yeah, your events delivered. Your event, we got exposure at the events, we got clients at the events, we got investors at the events, we got some direct investment through your network. So it was really good. So and then you guys are also doing our market making now with a few others, a lot of market makers, obviously because it's a big launch. But um, you guys are a great organization. Really appreciate you. Really appreciate the warm welcome and the belief in what we're doing. So, mad props. And obviously, I'll be at all the DNA events in the upcoming year as well. And, Brock, I'm glad I got to give you a personal update uh, in front of the entire public. So, reach out, and we are, yeah, right now, where we're at right now is we're trying to finish this final round before the Series A and the TGE, like before Christmas. We're almost done. It's going actually really well. But even a month ago, it was just going like kind of so. And I'm just like, fuck. And then all the privacy stuff started happening. Everybody's like, oh my God, privacy. So now we're doing good. But yeah, we're still not out of the woods. We love and appreciate all the help and support we get, and specifically what we got from DNA. So God bless. Amen. Thank you for the space. Thank you for the time.
Well, Mihal, thank you for the kind words. We really appreciate it. We appreciate working with you. Brock, thank you for your time. I know you're super busy, and that's a wrap for us. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Peace. Bye.